Everyone, inspirational influencer news, people making a difference. And this afternoon, I'm joined by Lillian Brummet, and she is certainly someone who is making a difference. Lillian and her husband Dave are the team behind Brummet Media Group, high-fiving cheerfully as they pass each other on the way from checking off one item or other from their long to-do list. Their business includes Dave's music studio and percussion instruments. Uh-oh. Did I lose you? Did I lose my show? What happened here? Well, that's interesting. All of a sudden, I lost everything. Oh, sorry about that. I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, I was talking to myself. Anyway, it happens, technology. So they have a music studio and percussion accessory products, as well as 6 award-winning nonfiction books and 2 popular blogs. Needless to say, Lillian is busy and making a difference. So Lillian, tell us, what is the one thing that you really want people to know about what you do and what makes a difference for you?
Well, I'm really passionate about making a difference, which is what I was really excited about coming onto your program, Mary, because I know you focus on that, on helping influencers become more of an inspiration, making more of a difference out there in the world than they already are by empowering them and inspiring them. And I think that's fantastic. Really glad to be here and be a part of that, because that's what we really focus on too. Our blog focuses on helping individuals. It's a free blog. We put up all kinds of free content every single day. There's new content on there, offering interviews and articles and discussions and resources to help people live a more positive and proactive lifestyle. And there's about a half a dozen pages on that blog. There's lots of information, lots of links on the sidebars. And that is my big passion outside of the business and outside of writing books and running the music studio and everything else that we do, is running that blog, because I reach a huge audience. In February this year, we had over 400,000 views to our blog. So, reaching that many people and being able to influence them, that's really exciting for me personally, like on a personal level.
I think that's amazing. And, one of the things that is great for influencers is the press. And what's really interesting is blogs are now the press, right? So you are part of a very large group of people that make a huge difference to how people become influencers, to who's seen as an influencer in the world, because you are part of the press. And it's great that we now have the press in so many other places. It's not the formal newspaper only, but it's blogs like yours, and it's other people's blogs, and it can be shows like mine. And all of a sudden, the world has shifted. So there's not one way to get your news. There's a lot of ways to get your news. And it all depends on what you're interested in and what view of the world you want, because it's all out there now. Mm-hmm. So why don't you tell us about, you've got 2 blogs. So obviously you're touching different parts of people's interest. What are these 2 blogs?
Okay, so the Drummet with Brummet blog is fairly new. It's only been around for about a year or so, and it has new posts going up every 4 to 5 days, usually. It is a blog that focuses mainly on the realm of music, with a heavy slant towards drummers and percussionists. So we have interviews there. We offer resources, suggested videos for people to watch. We talk about different aspects of being a drummer or a musician. What is it? What do you need to know about touring? What do you need to know about the various genres, the different labels of individuals who work in the industry? What does it mean if they're called this or called that? What is their responsibility? We talk about different types of drums and drumming and repairing and services and all kinds of topics in there. You want to be a musician on a cruise ship. How do you go about doing that? We have lots of different articles coming in about a variety of aspects of being a musician, including running your office and, you know, managing your taxes and a variety of other topics up there. So my husband is actively behind the scenes right now creating some new content for that blog in the form of video. So he'll be creating some videos about certain interesting instruments, and, you know, with him talking and explaining it. Lots of really fun stuff we have planned for the future. We're bringing on board a lot of the local musical outlets and musical retail stores and places like that, teachers groups and what have you. We're bringing them in for interviews. We got a lot of stuff planned for the future, so it's an exciting project, that one.
Hang on one sec, because I don't want to leave that without having you spell the letters, because it's easy to hear, but not necessarily easy to figure out how to spell, right?
Okay, so drum it with Brummet. So our last name is Brummet. So you'd go to drum it with Brummet at blogspot.com is where you'd go to find that.
Okay, so knowing that it's a Blogspot blog is very important.
Okay.
And it's a, you know, that's a big blog, public blog area that a lot of people can get to and use, and it's well respected. And what's nice about those kind of public blog spots is that they're policed pretty carefully. So, you know, it's like, it's a safe space. And I take it Drummet is just D as in dog, R-U-M as in Mary, I-T. Is that right? Drummet?
Yes.
With Brummet. And that's your last name.
That's
and
right.
So people can see that. And that starts with a B, not a D.
Right. And two M's, one T. A lot of people get that backwards. I don't know why, but it's Brummet.
Yes, I know. I had to look at it a couple times to make sure I got it right.
Yeah, you just want to see double everywhere after that.
Well, then I tried, you know, I got 2 T's and 2 M's, and then, no, that's not right.
I've had that before too, yes.
So anyway, so Drummet with Brummet, and you'll find all sorts of musical news. I think that's fantastic that you really take that out and show people how to take advantage of their musical instruments and their musical skills. I mean, getting on cruise ships, gosh knows, just think, we're going to have cruise ships again. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh, that's right.
And, you know, so things are loosening up and changing, and there's more opportunity. And I just love that you really expand that for people. So that
we cover both aspects too, like both live and online. So we have a lot of resources, you know, how you can sell your music online, places that they may want to check out that are outlets that are recommended from, you know, movers and shakers in the industry. And we've made a note of it for ourselves, and we're sharing that with others on the blog. So we share a lot of information in that regard. And now that the things are opening up, as you mentioned, you know, restaurants are starting to bring in the bands. My husband's bands, he has 2, are getting booked regularly. It's usually 3 out of every 4 weekends. He's got a gig somewhere. So he's pretty active that way now. Whereas the years previous, it was just silent, you know, silent. There was no calls coming in. And so it was, okay, well, what are we going to do now? So it was an interesting phase to go through, but we're really glad to see it get opened up again. That's for sure.
No kidding. I think everybody who's out there in the retail space can say amen to that. Boy.
Yes.
Because it's been a tough couple of years for sure.
Yes.
Okay, so you've got a second blog. So what's the second blog?
Okay, that one is Brummet's Conscious Blog. So it's actually, sorry, the name has changed, and I keep on going back to the old one because I'm old and my brain does not function 100%. It's actually called Conscious Discussions is the name of the blog. It used to be called Brummet's Conscious Discussions. We found it too long. We took out the Brummets. So it's Conscious Discussions. consciousdiscussions.blogspot.com is where
okay.
you go.
So conscious,
another blog spot.
As in you are conscious.
Yes.
Discussions.
Yes.
So people
so
who
it's
are
about
conscious,
bringing up awareness. So once we become aware of an issue, and we're fed the inspiring, empowering, motivating information to move forward on it, we're more likely to take action on it because we've become aware and because we've become empowered. A lot of times we're going through life with our blinders on because we're focused on whatever is in front of us and our emotional, weight and the garbage truck of emotional baggage behind us that we're carrying around, and we don't always open our eyes to all the opportunities around us to create positive change. And so I think when people come to the blog, they realize that not only are they not alone in their thinking and their desire to create positive change, but that there are millions and billions of people and organizations out there doing incredible, inspiring work. And once you realize that the world is not such a dark and dooming, terrible, tragic place, that there is brightness and light, and in fact, a lot more of it. The problem is traditional media likes to keep us in a state of fear because it sells papers. It's not any kind of conspiracy thing or anything like that. It's basically, it sells papers. People go watch the news media on TV because they want to find out, oh no, what's happening with this thing that I'm all worried about.
Well, and it was a comment in the news.
Yeah.
If it bleeds, it leads. And
that's right.
So it was always the horror
yes.
that was being broadcast. And gosh knows, with all these terrible shootings, there's lots of that. Yes. And, so helping people to get beyond that is wonderful, because it's getting beyond it that, allows the world to move. Yes. And these people who do these terrible things have been stuck in their stories that keep them unconscious and in fear, which is, because most of these people that lash out and grab guns and start shooting are in fear. The world's changing and they don't like it. It's scary.
Because they've been fed scary information. But if they got out there and they started feeding themselves with positive information, they're going to realize that it isn't such a scary place, that it isn't such a dark place, that there's a heck of a lot of love out there. There's a lot more brightness and lightness than there is darkness. And it's just that because we're fed and we allow ourselves to be fed and we accept that information that we being fed. Yes, that's true. I'm going to believe that now. So then we take that into our lives and we can't see anything else. We just see this darkness and how terrible and awful and scary everything is, but it really isn't. And, yes, there are, things going on in the world everywhere, and we can look for it. We can search it. We can find it everywhere, but you don't have to look too far to find goodness. It's in your neighbor. It's in your it's right here. There's so much positive and wonderful things going on in the world in every direction around us. We just have to open our eyes and pay more attention to it. I think once we become more aware of that, we get out of this state of apathy, that scared deer in the headlights. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to keep what's mine. I'm going to, all of that mentality that goes on. It starts fading away, and you start opening up your life to have a more community-minded life and a more proactive life where you're making a difference, you're leaving a positive legacy, as opposed to closing in and getting scared and hiding away and holding all that in. It's all up here, and it's all what we're feeding ourselves. So really, we just have to choose to feed ourselves positive information and watch that change grow. You'll just all of a sudden evolve. You realize your life isn't so bad,
Well, and it's so important now as we begin to come out of COVID, because boy, that has been the isolating, stay away from everybody. Everybody's dangerous. Everybody could harm you. It's horrible. I mean, really, just an incredibly awful scene to have to hopefully gone through, not be going through, but it's like when you become conscious that it is in your head, not necessarily everywhere, that you can start to take and do something about it. So a lot of
people with the COVID thing, as using your example, they either went into the state that you're talking about, or they decided, you know what, I'm going to remodel my kitchen. I'm going to start, going through my stuff and finding all these items that I can donate when the donations are open again, go through my home and downsize and organize. Other people are out there saying, you know what, I'm going to revamp my business before it relaunches again after the COVID thing. They got involved. They looked at the situation as an opportunity to use that time to make creative, positive change in their lives. thousands, hundreds of thousands of books got launched after the COVID, hundreds of thousands. There's something like 3,000 a day were being released for a while there in the United States alone. That's not all everywhere that speaks English, just in the US alone. Crazy stuff happened because people buckled down and said, great, this is an opportunity for me to finish my book, this dream that I had. Let's get it happening. And so I think it really depends on who you're talking to. Some people are going to be that, oh, you know, the world's horrible. And other people are going to go, you know, this is a really great experience for me to, or, you know, a chance for me. I'm going to take that e-course and upgrade my skills. I'm going to, you know, do something that's going to make my life, my family's life better. Maybe I can make a difference in my community in some way. Let's look at this. Let's work on this. A lot of people got involved with their family a lot more, you know, brought out the board games, you know, shut off the TV and started doing things with their family, acting out plays, doing theater, doing little singer groups and all kinds of online things that they posted for their friends and family to see and brighten their days. All kinds of stuff was happening that people were getting creative with, as opposed to the few who decided to create this negative world around themselves and take that experience that they're having into a negative direction as opposed to taking it to a positive. It's all up here.
Well, let's go back because when I was putting up your show, I was reminded that really part of what has catapulted you and your husband Dave into all of what you do was a terrible accident. So why don't you take us back to that terrible accident and tell us what happened, you know, and how you brought yourself through it? Because I think that even that is such an experience for people to realize there is life after things that you don't think there's life after.
Yeah, you know, that was a huge blow for me to lose my business, to be involved in the accident. It was a huge blow. So a little bit of background briefly. I was on my own when I was 13. I put myself through school. I built up the business management skills. I took the courses. I started my own business and I had it running successfully for 6 years, right? Then around the age of 24, 25, something like that, I was involved in a 3-car pileup. I was in the middle. This fellow who had bought a brand new massive Ram truck, you know, with the ones with the extra wheels on the outside. He was barreling down the road, all happy that he bought this truck, and he had his music blaring. He was looking away, and he just slammed into me, and I slammed into the car in front of me with children. And it was hugely traumatic for me, not only the anxiety disorder that came out of it, but the trauma of the actual happening of it. I mean, the physical pain that I went through. For 1.5 years, I was in physiotherapy. The first year full-time, the second year part-time, and then I dwindled off using outsourced therapies like massage therapy and physiotherapy here and there when I needed it, when I could afford it, because after that, you know, the ICBC, the car insurance wasn't going to cover it anymore. So, you know, it was a huge thing. I lost my business because I didn't have a succession plan in place. I was at the point where I'd already started hiring out staff. I was going to sit back, well, not sit back, but I was going to take on more of the office role and the administrative role and have more staff do the actual jobs for the clients. I was getting at that stage, and then I lost it all. So for me, that was a massive blow because I just felt like I had worked so hard to get where I was with absolutely no handouts. I had no family. I had nobody supporting me. It was just me working, going to school, doing what I had to do to make this work, struggling, building the business, everything, right? And then to have that taken away from me, I felt like the universe just kicked me down so hard. And I just didn't want to get up, and I didn't want to go on in life. I really didn't want to go on in life. And I had these thoughts, these really dark thoughts. And I was thinking if I was going to move forward in life, and the only thing that kept me with a glimmer of wanting to go on in life was the fact that I had fallen in love with Dave, and it was a new relationship. We'd been together, I don't know, 4 or 5 years by this point. And so it was, you know, something fairly strong there for me to lean on. If it wasn't for that, I don't know if I'd be around today. And we had these conversations about what is it that's going to make me want to move forward in life. And the only thing that I could find was the desire to leave a positive legacy behind, not my name in print and be famous, but to look back and say, if I built something up and it got taken away from me, and I look back and I think, yeah, but all that time I made such a great difference. I had such a great time. I learned a lot of things and I made a big difference for a lot of people. Then that crushing weight of losing something wouldn't be so crushing, because I would have that feeling of being rewarded, that I had made a difference, that my time put in made a difference, had some sort of impact. So that's really where it came from.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, I think that there's such an example there. And really, I kind of want to emphasize it, because it's in the loss that you kind of find your strength sometimes. Yes. Where, like, in your darkest hour, you can find reasons, and that can inspire other people, because life has these little twists and turns, and none of us kind of goes through and everything's all light and roses, you know. I mean, even in the world of Elon Musk, I remember, you know, back 2, 3, 4 years ago, now he's the richest man in the world. He was about to lose Tesla because things were not working out. And he had to do and work some real miracles in order to bring that forward. And, you know, that's on one scale, but you had a life-threatening experience. You kind of clung to, I want this relationship. I want to live. There's something to live for. I really want to make a difference. I know I can. And that allowed you to move forward. And I think that it's in that, you know, just being able to tell your story, you know, that can really inspire other people, because a lot of people have dark moments, right? When the world really seems dark, and we've had a few of them here. And yet there's a lot of reason, and you can still do a lot of good, and it's make a decision, you know. That's really one of Napoleon Hill's, you know, principle, you know, mottos. Make a decision and then live into that decision. You made a decision that you wanted to live, and you wanted to leave a positive legacy, and it's given you a whole purpose to why you wanted to recover, how you were going to recover, you know, just working your way back from devastating injuries.
Yeah, that's very true. You know, it is very much in the mindset. You know, you have to be, once you've made the decision that you're going to move forward in a positive way, and you have some idea of what that direction is going to be, it's always going to be a flexible plan, because when you're first starting out, you don't know where it's going to take you, what direction. You might go a little bit right, a little bit left until you find your way, you know. But at the same time, you got to make those steps. So just saying, oh geez, you know, I am in love with baking, I'm going to start a baking business from my home kitchen. Let's just say that's your goal in your mind, but then you don't do anything about it. You become overwhelmed by all the steps that have to be taken. You don't know where to start. You're feeling a little bit of the weight of the fear of being an entrepreneur. You have to kind of feel the fear and do it anyway. You don't always have to have the skills, but you can develop those skills. So I think the biggest thing, if you're going to start out with any new project that you're passionate about, is to really create that action plan. You know, what steps am I going to take now that is going to lead up to tomorrow or next year's, or, you know, 3 years from now, the goal that I'm reaching for? You know, what skills do I have to learn? What steps do I have to take now that's leading that way? And as long as you're making steps forward, you're good to go, you know?
Well, and I think too that it's, people ask how, as if there was a how, when in fact there isn't a how. There's, what step do you see in front of you that you think will take you to the next step? And then once you've got there, then it's the same thing. What's the next step I need to take? And what's the next step I need to take? Because, you know, in the world of the great, the hows, there are a million hows. Like you said, you could choose to be a baker, and maybe you could choose to be a home baker. And there are, a lot of stories of people who started out making amazing cookies or amazing muffins or, amazing little cupcakes in their kitchen. And they got a following, and all of a sudden they, got a whole brand that was amazed at what, so it's like, we don't realize the power of our mind. Right. And if we trust that by taking the next step, just what do you see? Can you take one more step? Can you take one more step? And, I often reminded of the story of one of these people who became a one-legged runner. And she wasn't a runner before she became one-legged, but she took up running and now has taken up, and I think it was like 106 marathons in 106 days. Wow. And people ask her, how could you possibly do that? I just took the next step. I just took the next step because I didn't get myself all disturbed about how big the distance was. I just took the next step. I just took the next step. And, I think that's really invaluable information for people to know that that's the secret. That's the secret to moving forward with your life. Take the next step. Decide you want to go somewhere and take the first step. Then take the next step,
That's right. And, we don't have to like reinvent the wheel either. Like, you want to do it according to your own unique situation, but there's a lot of people who have gone there, done there, been that, all that. We can learn from them, go ahead and get a coach, get a mentor, learn from other people, get online and learn from other people with each new step that you go to take on, but then sit back and say, okay, well, now that I've learned all this, how can I apply this to my unique situation? And what are my unique challenges? Let's say this year, I don't have any funds at all for advertising for my baking endeavor. Maybe I can then take my baked items and donate them to certain events. Or
you can do fundraisers with them.
Fundraisers, right? You
draw attention, do fundraisers in your
at the
community,
lawyer's office. And yes. So,
and get the word out. I mean, there are always ways. Absolutely. If you just trust that there is a way to take the next step.
That's right. When I first started my very first business, the Incredibly Clean was what I called it, the one that I ran for 6 years. I had a target in mind of the type of clientele that I wanted. I had no money to work with. So I put on my little tennis shoes and I dressed appropriately because it was hot, but I wanted to be comfortable too. I had my little satchel with waters and things, and I walked around with these flyers that I had rolled up like dogmas. I put ribbons on them. It was this beautiful display. And then I tucked them in these wealthy home doors. They all have these D-shaped doors. So I went along and, handles. So I went along to all those neighborhoods where I wanted to have them as clientele. It took me maybe 3 weeks of walking around, got in great shape because, it was a lot of hills, but I ended up fulfilling my clientele list within that short time period, and also was turning away clients before that summer ended without having to spend $1 in advertising. It was just strapping on the shoes, start walking around, handing it out. At the time it was a Walkman, in my ears, right? Walking around with my Walkman. And for those of you who don't know, it's a big boxy thing that you hooked onto yourself and you stuck a cassette tape in and you went walking. Yeah. So that's what I did. And I did that, like I say, for maybe a couple weeks, maybe, and I ended up having more than I could handle as far as clientele. So you don't have to have, people often think, well, I don't have the money, I don't have the budget, I can't outsource. You don't necessarily always have to. Get creative, think creatively. How can you work around that and get things started?
Yeah. And I think it stops a lot of us. And I'm guilty often too of not taking the obvious step, wanting to do the bigger step. And it's the obvious one. Like, you can do it, just by getting out and talking to people you already know and find out who they know and who they know.
Absolutely. Well, here's a really good example in networking with being an author. So lately, this last year, I've doubled down on this particular aspect of our marketing plan. We have a multifaceted marketing plan, but of this particular aspect, I doubled down on, and that is getting more involved with community events. So there's a conference happening. Maybe one of my books would be appropriate for that audience, and I can donate it as a door prize to that conference. So these, might be bankers. It might be the regional district of the Kootenay Boundary waste stream industry is having their conference or something like that. So I would choose the book that would be appropriate for that audience, and I would give it away as a door prize. Or maybe they're having a dinner afterwards and they're giving away prizes then, or whatever. So I'd get involved with these different types of events, even fundraisers, silent auction fundraisers. There's all kinds of things that you can do. Recently, I got involved with a Blossom Festival. It's a group of volunteers that get together, and they organize this long weekend event. I think it's like 3 or 4 day weekend event of like parades and festivals and fairs, and all these businesses have all these different events at different times of the day, and they organize all of it. Just amazing. There's dances and dinner, all these amazing events all across the town for the whole all day, for the whole weekend. And I said to them last minute, I didn't even arrange this ahead of time. I just contacted one of the organizers and I said, oh, I should have thought of this earlier, but would you guys like to use some of 3 or 4 or 5 copies of our cookbook and maybe give them away as prizes for your various events while you're out there announcing whatever? And they jumped on that. They ended up giving away 5 copies of our book. All the social networking posts that they put out about that, it was great. Big picture of our book. And
nothing like having that as
right?
and you look like a hero because you were a sponsor. So
yeah. And just doing it freely, not trying to go into it with, what can I get out of this, but more like giving it to them and then hoping you get something back. And you always do, you're getting attention from their unique circle of contacts. You're getting attention from their social networking happenings, which you can then share, and then you can create this blog posts and your own social networking, promotions about it. And so it just creates all this fodder to create even more movement and notice and awareness of your product. In this case, it was our cookbook. And so without having to spend $1 in actual advertising, the book is really well known in our community. So actually we are really well known in our community, but that particular book, because of all the things we've done over the last little while, it's just skyrocketed.
And so that's just an example of what you can do without funds. And when you actually just say, okay, let's do this. Let's take that one step.
Yep.
Anyway, sadly, we've run out of time.
Did not, did we?
You have been such a wonderful guest.
Thank you.
And I hope that this is inspiring to my audience, to your audience, that they really got something from it, because everybody really can make a difference. And that's really the positivity that I want to get out there, is you don't have to be some big name somewhere. I'm not a big name. You're not a big name. There's lots of places in the world my name wouldn't be known, your name wouldn't be known. But that isn't the point. The point is we make a difference in our little worlds. Mm-hmm. And that's what you can do. And it's a snowball, because if we're all out there committed to being inspirational influencers in our communities with the people we know, the world can turn into a much, much different place. Anyway, Lillian, I want to thank you so much. And to all our listeners, we'll have another show on Monday. So thanks to all of you who listen. Oops.